Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 102. Now, I know this is a week later, but in real time, Pete and I, it's Pete and I today. We don't have Paul with us today, but in real time, we just had our conversation with Simon Marion yesterday, which would have been the podcast that came out last week. And just prior to coming on, we were having a bit of a chat around that. And that I hope you have listened to last week's podcast, episode 101. If you haven't, I'd really recommend you go back and listen to it. It was not an easy conversation, was it, Pete?
Honestly, I was, as he was talking, I was like, right, because it was a bit stilted sometimes. So when he stopped talking, we were like radio silence, you know, there was a lot of dead air, wasn't there? And it was like, what do I say to that? What do I say? You know, and then a couple of times, obviously, we had a bit of a laugh, but which you can do, but it's like, but it was such a serious subject. It was unbelievable. I mean, obviously, like we say, it was like 24 hours ago in real time, and I'm still kind of processing it. I had a chat with Sean about it when she got back as well, and I was just like, honestly, this guy we just spoken to was amazing. It was so, I mean, everybody's, you know, it's one of those things everybody should listen to, but the people who do will, obviously. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Brilliant. So what we are doing today, guys, is we are getting a podcast in before I head off on a holiday tomorrow. I'm off to Crete for 2 weeks. And I mentioned, I think in the yesterday's podcast or last week's podcast, the fact that I'll be kind of tech free and social media free for a couple of weeks. So Pete and I are taking this opportunity to get another one in the can, as it were. And we've got something we want to talk about today. And just to kind of frame it a little bit, I've been running a program for the last 12 weeks called Fit for Life, which is really aimed at people over 40 who are not used to doing any kind of exercise or any training really, and want to make some kind of change in their life to, you know, have more energy, lose weight, increase their confidence, increase their fitness, and start putting some positive, beneficial habits in place. So I've been working with, for the last 12 weeks, how many people? We've had about 30 come through it so far. People who are new to exercise and new to training. And just before we started to record, I said to Pete that I've kind of got a list of 3 levels of change, if you like, or different depths of change that I'm seeing with people. And I have seen over the years with people when they want to make some kind of change in their life. So we're going to kind of have a bit of a discussion around that. And Pete and I will share our own experiences of this, and we'll throw in some stories and real life anecdotes and things. And we just had a little conversation before we started to record as well. But before we do that, how are you, Pete?
I'm very well. It's, what are we at now? It's only 24 degrees in my living room now, 24 and a half. So yeah, during recording, we've just come through the heat wave. The world hasn't ended, so we're all right. But yeah, so
we're about 10 degrees colder than we were yesterday, aren't we? Just overnight. So it's honestly,
it's lovely. I've trained today, and it felt better today than it has done for ages, because Mondays was awful. This is Wednesday now, we're recording this on, and it felt so much better because everything's cooler. I had the fan blowing. I've been able to take the boy out for a walk, and he's been swimming in the canal, diving in and everything. It's just been a great day. So yeah, everything's good.
Well, I started last night was a very, very hot night, you know, and a lot of people I've spoken to today didn't sleep particularly well, but I started work at 6 this morning. And at 5:30, I was sat outside in the cold tub because I woke up and I was hot and sweaty and clammy and all
what
the
you
rest
should
of it.
do, what you should do is go in at like 10 o'clock at night and your neighbors will be like peeking out the window like that. And then nip back out again at 5 o'clock in the morning. They'll be like, he's still there.
It wasn't far off, actually. So I did go in yesterday evening. But yeah, this morning, I just went in there for 5 minutes and it just cooled me down. It cooled me right down. I felt great going into work. And my first client, Fred, who I had at 6 a.m., because I said, at 5:30, I was in the cold tub. And he said, yeah, you seem really buzzing this morning. You're like wide awake and, and full of energy. And I was, it was brilliant.
Honestly, when I hear people talk about the benefits, and I've heard, Andrew Huberman was going on about it, the neuroscientist guy you've probably heard him on podcasts. He's got his own podcast as well. But they talk about the dopamine effect of it. And it's a long-lasting dopamine effect, like the feel-good effect. It's a long-lasting effect rather than like a drug or something like that, which gives you instant high, but not for very long. So then you've got to do more of it. Whereas it's the cold tub stuff or the cold shower stuff or whatever gives you a longer-lasting dopamine effect. And also, if you get up in the morning and you have a cold shower or whatever, you feel like you've achieved something already as well, like with doing very little. So it's a massive win. And I haven't had a warm shower now for about a month. And it's been brilliant,
Yeah, I think it's kind of touches on what we spoke a little bit about last week, where we were talking about stress and this kind of idea of, hormesis, where a little amount of controlled stress is good for you. Yeah. Whether that be temperature or whether that be strength training, and because you really grow and develop and adapt through exposure to stress, don't you?
But a little amount is subjective as well, because a little amount might be 15 seconds under a cold shower. But then now it turns into a little amount is 5 minutes under a cold shower, and that's tiny. That's I could do way longer than that. I mean, I don't know how cold it is. It's not as cold as your tub goes, obviously. But it's I'd say it's just had a great effect on me, but I can't really explain why. I just think it has. I always feel like I've achieved something when I come out, which is great. So
I know Paul Field, friend of the show, Paul Field, also says, he's been having his cold showers, I think, for about the last month, or certainly the last few weeks, just on 100% cold from the start. And like he said as well, when the temperature is hot as it has been, the water is not cold. It's more like cool, lukewarm, cool, but it's still that act of voluntarily putting yourself into a minorly stressful, uncomfortable situation first thing in the morning. And if you can do that, and it's usually things like someone could have, you've got to make a phone call that you're not looking forward to, or you've got to you've got to speak to someone and have a slightly awkward, what could be perceived as a difficult conversation, or whatever it is, or you've got to do some exercise or training. If you've started the day and you've started the day with the success of saying you were going to do something and following through on your promise to yourself, then that does set you up for a good day, I think.
Do you know what? I've just had two thoughts there. Number one, whether it's been cold or hot, getting into the cold shower is never easy. I turn it on, I stand, I look at it, I can feel the coldness coming off, and I'm like, right, and I've got to brace myself to go in, right, and do the breathing and all that. And the second thing there is, so say like we have to do sales calls and stuff. Well, I do anyway. I don't know if you do anymore because you've got minions, haven't you? But anyway, and I remember there's a lady who now comes along, and when you have to make the call, you're kind of like, what's this? You don't know what the person's going to be like, right? This was someone who bought onto a 2-week trial. They do it automatically through the website, and then I'll obviously get in touch with them within like 24 hours to introduce. I'll send them a text and then give them a ring and stuff. And I'm always thinking like, what's this going to go like? So I rang, she picked up the phone, hiya, and blah, blah, and all that. And it was like, instantly I was like,
it was like talking to an old friend or something.
This is going to be good. She just sounded so positive and great and everything, right? Now, after being in a cold shower, say in the morning, if you haven't done that, or you haven't done something like that, and you pick up the phone and you speak to someone, you might be like, hello, or whatever. Whereas if you've already done that, you're already, like you said, you were buzzing this morning, you're already there. So therefore it's already going to go better, isn't it?
Yeah. You bring the energy to the conversation and to the situation, and if your energy is high and good, then even if you tend to sort of drag people up, don't you, with you?
Absolutely.
Or even worst case scenario, it might not be a very good conversation, but you're feeling so good that it doesn't really matter to you.
It's not your fault.
Yeah, exactly. Dear me. So we've already just kind of fallen into a little bit of a conversation around the first layer, I suppose, of things. And I don't have a official title for each layer, but this is probably the most surface layer. I'm just going to cough, so I'm going to mute. Wait a second. I don't have a name for the layers, but this is the most sort of surface one, I suppose. Call it level 1 or layer 1 or whatever. And this is things like that people might want to make some kind of change, but to begin with, they're looking very much at surface level, and it's things like tips, tricks, hacks, tactics that people might look at.
Secrets.
So, what's that?
Secrets,
yes, exactly.
We're coming up with all the marketing clickbait jargon is right there for you.
Yeah, but it could be, so one of these things, one of these tips, tricks, hacks, secrets, whatever, on the surface might be cold showers. People might come to you and say, "Oh, I've heard about these cold showers. What are these good? Are these going to make a difference to my life? Are these?" People are after the, like you say, the quick fix, almost the one thing that's going to make a difference. And some people might be like, "Oh, I've heard about kettlebells. That a kettlebell's a thing. Is the kettlebell swing? I've heard it's a great exercise. Do I just do loads of them? Or I've heard about the benefits of cold showers. I've been seeing this a lot in the magazines and the papers and things. How do I get involved in cold showers? Could be as simple as you see some influencers and things say about, in your water in the morning, add a slice of lemon to your water because it does something or whatever. So most people initially
lemony.
Makes it taste lemony. Yeah. Most people want this kind of this surface layer of give me something quick that I can do that's going to make a difference. And you can probably relate to this, can't you, Pete? I'd imagine with people you talk to as well.
Yeah, but the funny thing, totally. But the funny thing is with it, I don't know what the expectation actually is. I'm thinking this through as we talk now, and this has just come up in my head, which is why we think about these things all the time, right? Because all these new things come up. So we talk to people about this sort of stuff all the time, but I don't actually know what the expectation is for these things. I don't know what the expectation is of like, do I just do it for a couple of weeks and then I'm done and then my life's all sorted? Or do I have to do it for the rest of my life or whatever? I don't think people even think that far. They just go, I just want one thing to do. So you say to do it and they go, well, that's quite easy. So I can do that. They do it for a couple of days and go, oh, it didn't work.
Yes. Yeah. So it's almost something else that I do myself that we've spoke about a number of times on the podcast, something like intermittent fasting, it comes under the same banner, I suppose. It's like, oh, I've heard that intermittent fasting's good. And, or the Michael Mosley 5-2 diet, or, he's got his fast 800 thing and, and
yeah, I'll not tell you what I think of that, but
yeah, but it's,
it's obvious, isn't it?
It's tell me something to do, and then I'll do it. And so that's kind of the surface layer. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we do. I suppose marketers tap into it, and I will put myself in that category. People, there's that saying, isn't there? Kind of, what is it? Kind of sell. You sell people on what they want, and then you gradually give them what they need. You know what I mean?
And then you need to get them to want what they need.
Yeah, and you meet people where they're at. So I fully understand it from a marketing point of view. So that's
it is with the right intentions. If you're saying I want to get people in on this surface level thing, but what happens is when they come in, and within 12 weeks or whatever, you can get them to realize that there's more to it than that. So it's not a dirty tactic. It's actually there's a good intention behind it, rather than just getting people in, flogging them on a program, charging them a load of money, giving them a PDF, and then you're like, right, thanks, then I'll get the next, and just getting volume through. You know what I mean? You want the right people, and then at least they can go on that journey. And then if they don't want to, that's perfectly up to them. But, you know, that's why it gets like a bad rap and a bad name, doesn't it? But it's like, it's kind of the way to draw people in, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, this 6-week Fit for Life sort of challenge that we've been doing, I make it very clear that from the start, it's 6 weeks that's going to be the catalyst or the kickstart that you need to start forming some habits, to start looking at things in your life, to start moving more, to start making progress. But like you said earlier, it's very much, this isn't 6 weeks and then you're going to do it and your life's going to be great and everything's going to be sorted and you're going to be where you want to be. It's kind of a 6-week lead in to hopefully what will be, you know, a long-term commitment and the rest of your life, you know.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
yeah.
we'll get into it in a bit, won't we? But like a bit further down the line. But the person has decided that they want to make a change somewhere and do something, but they don't know what, or they do know what, but they don't want to do that just yet. So they want something simple, putting a plaster on it, putting a plaster on a massive crack in your house or something like that, innit? You know what I mean? Or filling it in with polyfiller or whatever. And it's a similar thing. Like, do I just do cold showers? Yes, you can do that. But they might do it for 2 or 3 days and then have a bad day. And then whatever it is in their head that makes them sabotage themselves and all that shows up. So it might be eating, it might be whatever. And then it just goes by the wayside. And then it goes through the whole cycle again. And people do this like across weeks, across months, across years of their lives, don't they? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So if we call that kind of that first level of, level 1 of, like we said, tips, tricks, hacks, tactics, secrets that people want to have, to get this, or, it might just be, right, just drink 2 liters of water a day, whatever it is. And a lot of these things will be seen as things that are done in isolation, and they're not really seen as a part of a bigger picture, I suppose. They're, like I say, they're these tricks and hacks that you can easily implement into your life, hopefully make a change without really changing too much,
But the idea is you want to start a cycle going, don't you, of good behaviors.
Yeah.
Good habits, shall we say?
Yeah. And it is a start. It's a starting place, and it's where most people come into things. And then the next level, so if we call it tier 2 or level 2, would be more like things like methods or programs or approaches or systems. So someone wants to go the next level deeper and take, because we've mentioned it a few times, sort of, Wim Hof and cold showers and stuff. So it could be the tip, the trick or the hack is, right, start having cold showers in the morning, start having cold showers. And you might see like a little, like a meme or a infographic on Instagram or Facebook. And that's how I started, where it's sort of like, oh, the 4-week cold shower challenge, and it's like the first week you do, I think it was just say 15 seconds at the end of every shower. And the second week is 30. And the third week is 45. And the final week is like a minute. And then after that, you try and have.
And then after that, you buy a tub and stick it in your garden.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then after that, you might try a full cold shower or something. Yeah. So, but it's very simple. It's like an infographic or a meme or something like that. And then if you really got into that, you might decide, well, actually, like I did, I bought a couple of, Wim Hof books, or you might look at the actual Wim Hof method, as they call it, which includes, breathing practices and cold exposure and mindset and things like that. So then you start looking at more of a bigger picture. And if you are using an element of training, something like kettlebells, you start getting interested in kettlebells, you then might, invest in a book or start watching some videos about it, or inquire about, something like Strong First or Steve Cotter or one of these kind of programs or systems around it. And then you kind of take it to the next level,
See, the beauty of that, let's take the cold shower thing as an example, right? The Wim Hof method. I don't know a lot about it. I just know it's about cold exposure and there's breathing techniques, but he didn't invent the breathing techniques. It's brought in from history, isn't it? And he's just brought them into the present. So as I understand it, I don't know because I've never read any of his stuff. I'm aware of him and I know he's mental, but it works, right? And there's science behind it as well because he's been studied and all that. And I've heard, like I say, I've heard that like neurologists going about it and all this sort of stuff. So for me, the beauty of doing something like you've just said in this second tier is systems and what have you, but you can apply these systems to other stuff. So I know about strength training, right? And I know that progressive overload, cycling through, you do stuff, you've just gone blurry, mate. You do stuff, you add a little bit of weight, like what Chris Zaremba was saying and all that, and like what Paul says about getting towards your comfort zone and all that. And then when it gets to getting too much, you go back and cycle through it all again. So I'm just applying that to cold exposure. And like you've just said, do a little bit more. And then all of a sudden it got like, well, hang on, this is taking too long. So now we're doing an entire cold shower. So that's where I'm at the moment. And if I want to then take that any further, I can, because I can go, right, I'll look into it and I know where to go and all of this. But what's great about that is the deeper you want to go, you're already aware of it. Whereas if you try to dive into something deeply immediately that you're not aware of, like cold exposure, kettlebell training or whatever, if you say, right, I'm going to go and do IKFF or Strong First or whatever, and you've got zero knowledge, zero experience of it, you might do well, but it might just be completely not what you want, and you're going to spend thousands on it and then realize it's not what you want. So that getting the intention of getting into it and learning a principle or a system or whatever at the surface level, which is after what's the thing I need to do for 3 or 4 weeks, it kind of leads you into that journey, doesn't it? And then you can spend a lot of time there. So Dan John was talking about this, about learning to love the plateau. This is slightly different. You can spend a lot of time going, well, I'll delve a little bit more deeply into this. Or I'm not sure about that. What about this? No, I'm not sure. And then you'll eventually find the thing and go, actually, I want to go further into this now. And I've done that over the last 10 years and gone quite deeply into a lot of things over that time, but not all at once. You know what I mean? So you delve deeply into something for 2 years and then you go, right, I've done a lot of that now and I can park that, keep that where it is and keep that on a plateau while I work on something else. So I just find it all fascinating. And over 10 years, I've done so much stuff, and I think like I'm glad I started. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't know what I know now. And I wouldn't know about what I like and what I don't like as much and all that sort of stuff. So it's just been, it's fantastic.
Thinking about just having this conversation, I mean, another area of life or health, fitness, well-being, that sort of thing that this has followed a similar path for me was like getting into, I suppose, barefoot running and wearing minimalist shoes and stuff like that. I read Born to Run by Chris McDougall probably 12 plus years ago. And that really kind of got me interested in things. And then I actually got someone who ran a 6-week barefoot running course from Unique Results called Brett Sanders, who came and did that. And we did 6 weeks of building up and barefoot running. And then from 12 years ago, I always just wear either Vibrams 5 Fingers or the Vibrams Furoshiki shoes now, or just I train in bare feet, so that's something that's kind of what we'll go into in a minute on the next level. But it started from reading a book and having no awareness, and I just used to be your standard guy who'd wear Asics or Nikes or whatever, and then I read the book Born to Run, and it got me thinking differently, which is kind of the next level that we'll go to. And then it led me down, research and finding out more, and then doing a 6-week kind of course. And then that's really stuck, with me. So there's certain things that stick, and then they go to the next level. So
I love that, because that's I mean, that's one of my values. Like, you know, we're talking a lot about values and stuff, but one of my values is curiosity. Because there's all, you know, doesn't matter if you find the thing you like doing, at some point you're going to get to a stage where it's like, well, what else? What do I do now? Do you know what I mean? Because you're kind of in the groove of doing it, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But you get in the groove of doing it. It's just something you do. So it's not like trying to find something else like other than that. It's trying to find something to complement it, like the barefoot training and all that. So you might start out with kettlebells, wearing wobbly shoes, and then realize it's easier to do it without. And every time I get people to take their spongy shoes off, they're like, "Oh, that's way easier." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's because you're connected to the ground, you know." So yeah, the curiosity thing is great. And some people are like, "Well, why?" And I'm like, "It doesn't matter why, just take them off and have a go." And then you don't need to explain why, because they feel it straight. They go, "Well, that's way," or "It feels better," or whatever. So you know, and then you can start to talk why, because they know what you're talking about then.
So that just made me think, actually, having you know, go through your kind of thought processes just made me reflect on that myself. So if we recap the first two levels, the most surface level is tips, tricks, hacks, tactics, secrets. People might, you know, that, and then that's kind of almost like, and you know, I don't know how many of our listeners will be aware of the kind of process of, say, marketing, and the idea of a marketing funnel almost, where the top level is like is fairly cheap or free, and people kind of become aware of something, and then as you gradually filter people down through a funnel to kind of higher priced offerings or more commitment time wise and things. So at that top level is probably more the tips, the tricks, the hacks, the secrets, the tactics, and it could be like we said, you know, a meme that you see, an infographic, reading a book, listening to a podcast, watching a webinar, having a conversation with someone that just kind of gets that curiosity going, and then you want to kind of dip your toe in. And then the level two, the kind of next level down, is when you go more into it, things like methods, programs, approaches, systems. Maybe you might invest in that. You may actually then invest some money or some time into something, to learning more. You may hire a coach or a trainer, or sign up to a club, or, you know, buy yourself a kettlebell to use at home, for example, or whatever, you know, that kind of next level, which is showing a bit more commitment, probably financially, time wise, and bandwidth, and, you know, energy wise, with your thinking. And then the next level down, which I think is, if we're just going to separate into the three, which is the next stage down, which really is where you've gone through the first two levels, and then you actually start to shift your beliefs and your kind of your paradigm, or your paradigms around things. And actually you get to the level of kind of character and identity, where you then become the kind of person who, you know, or you then become the kind of person who is. And then that's kind of what we're talking about next, is that, and this doesn't happen overnight, but like I say, over the last 12 years now, I would never entertain the thought of buying a normal pair of athletic running shoes, for example. I just wouldn't do it, you know. It would be bonkers. It would be bonkers.
I'm gonna be flippant here. There's a sub level to that.
Yeah.
Between 2 and 3 of getting all evangelical about whatever it is, and telling everyone it's the thing to do, and blah blah, and that's all you bloody talk about. And then eventually you get to the point when you just go, "No, it's just something I do, right? And if you want to know, ask me. I am a normal person." It's true though, isn't it? We've all done it. We've all done it.
And then that's kind of, but that's I think that comes with maturity and experience and wisdom, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Of knowing.
Absolutely. And you can think, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can think you've got it, but when you're doing something new, you're new to the thing, and then you become young.
Yeah. But it's like other things, like me and like yourself, Pete, you know, training with kettlebells, you know, it's just something that we do. It becomes a part of us, you know, it becomes a part of our identity, becomes a part of our character. And similarly, whereby, you know, I wouldn't go into, I don't know, JD Sports or one of these shops and buy a pair of squidgy Nikes. I also wouldn't go into a a gym and choose to go on I don't know, like a leg extension or a leg press or a leg curl unless I was rehabbing something that I need, that would become, that is, and at certain times that may be appropriate, but I would rather do something like a lunge or a squat and have a more fundamental pattern where I'm using more of my own body and less machines, so that's another element, I suppose, that we look at.
The idea of it for me is the reason why I use kettlebells and the pull-up bar and all that is because I can transport that anywhere. So, I mean, we've been through a pandemic and all that, and over the last couple of years, we haven't really been out the country. This year, we were off up to Snowdonia and in the lakes for a couple of weeks when we go away in a couple of weeks. I haven't told Paul yet, but, I'll be like, right, I train 3 days a week. I'll still be doing that while I'm away. I actually put a post out about the magnetic plates you can get to stick to the bottom of kettlebells, because you can't buy them anywhere at the minute. Everyone's out of stock. And Johnny Jones in Wales, who I know on Instagram, I've met him I've met him once, I think. Got in touch with me and just said, I've got a couple if you want them. So, I I bunged him 50 quid and he sent them to me. So I can take a 28 kilo bell, a 32 kilo bell, and those two plates away with me. So I've got a 28, a 30, and a 32. So I can continue my program just by taking those two things away. Well, those two things and the plates away with me. Simple, dead easy. That's the only equipment I need. And that's fun. That's all I need. It's brilliant. I love it.
Because that is you at the level of identity, isn't it? We were talking about this a little bit before we recorded, whereby, you're now the kind of person who you're going to go away for a week somewhere or 2 weeks, and a primary concern is, how do I, keep moving? How do I keep improving myself? How do I, continue to build strength? How do I not just stop while I'm away for 2 weeks? So that's a concern. And
but that might look like an obsession to some people, right? Who are on level 1, say, because it's like, well, hang on, you want to be enjoying yourself and all that. And it's like, but it'll be 3 days a week. I'm going to be away for 14 whole days. That's 6 days out of 14. In the morning, I'll get it done. When if I didn't do it, I'd probably just get out of bed a bit later because I'm on holiday and just feel tired anyway. So I might as well get up an hour earlier and just get it done. And then it's done, because Sean will be in bed anyway, or she'll just sit and watch her iPad in bed and have a cup of coffee and stuff like that. We'll still be able to chat to each other because I'll be in between sets and stuff like that. So it doesn't, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't actually be replacing it with anything else. So I might as well anyway. Do you know what I mean?
And you will, and this is from my experience as well, you will feel better for the rest of the day knowing that you've done that in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the days, we're going to be like walking up mountains and going to beaches and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
So I've just kind of, so, and we spoke tomorrow, obviously, everyone can relate to this, we've got an early flight tomorrow at 7:20 in the morning. So we'll be at the airport at 5:20 in the morning. We'll be getting up about 4:30 because the airport's fairly close to where we live. But I would not normally, we've spoken about this before, I would not normally eat breakfast because I normally fast until lunchtime anyway. But so it's easy for me not to eat breakfast, but most people would, turn up at an airport at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're waiting around for 2 hours. What do you do to fill time? You grab something to eat, and then
have a pint.
And have a pint. Yeah, someone said to me, I think I'm sure they were joking, but one of the members the other day said to me, I said, "Oh yeah, I'll be at the airport at 5:30," and they said, "Straight into Wetherspoons for a pint."
Well, honestly, Bristol Airport, right? I don't know if they still do it, but 5 or 6 years ago, I remember I was there going up to Newcastle. And they had an offer on breakfast and a pint for £8.50 or something like that. And I was like, and that there was like banners up with it advertising it, breakfast and a pint for this one.
That's for the stag do market, isn't it?
Yeah, but I was like, really?
So it's easy. So when I go away, we spoke about this, I think last time or last year, but I try and I am on holiday. and I'm going to love it and I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to love having time with my family. But I'm not going to, if we go back to the old levers, you know, I'm not just going to turn all the levers off and, you know, eat all day, drink all day, and just not do any exercise. And because you end up coming home feeling you've just got to undo a lot of the you know, the abuse that you've done to yourself for 2 weeks, and you actually come back from holiday feeling worse rather than feeling refreshed and feeling better, you know, in my experience. So,
and I think that's hugely common. I know before I started to think about my health and fitness and lifestyle in general, working long hours and all of that, you know, it's classic thing. You go on holiday for 2 weeks. For the first week, you feel rubbish because you've been telling your body to just keep going and keep going and keep going, and then you eventually relax after being stressed, and you just get ill. And then the second week is kind of like, right, I feel a bit better now. I've actually switched off. And then you get 3 or 4 days of that, and then you're like, right, I've got to be back to work in 3 days. So it's stressful being on holiday, or I used to find that. Yeah. And it's, you know, I think that's hugely common.
And I think that's when you get to that next, you know, that third tier, if you like, that that identity, that character, that of, well, this is who I am and this is what I do. And you're less wibbly wobbly, if that's you're less open just to be swayed by what everybody else does, because you know, oh, it's 11 o'clock, everyone's drinking a pint by the pool, you know.
You see, right, we spoke about this before. I'm going to bring it up now because this goes with what I was saying earlier about dabbling in different, so like doing the cold showers. And you do fasting, right? You do like 18 hours a day or something. 18.
Yeah, I don't hard and fast measure it, but I never eat before kind of lunchtime, and that could be probably anywhere between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock. You know, yeah. So I just wouldn't eat. I don't have any calories till lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, and so. I'm kind of similar, but it's not hard and fast. But I just don't eat. I do eat breakfast, but I eat it like 11 o'clock in the morning because I get more done then. Because I don't have to worry about I've got to get a breakfast sorted, because then it takes up time. So I've got time at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, right, I'll do it then. And I also like to train fasted as well. Not necessarily. It's not particularly fasted. I just don't like to train after I've eaten. And so during this heat wave, which has been short, but for the last couple of weeks, it's been too hot to take Sid out for the usual afternoon walk between like 1 and 3 or 4. We'll be out and about, but I can't do that because the ground's too hot or he'll overheat. So I've had to change my days around to take him for a walk in the morning. So therefore that pushes my training back. So therefore that pushes when I eat back. Okay. And, you know, some people will look at that and go, well, I couldn't do that. I'd get too hungry. And I'm like, yeah, but I've trained some fasting in the past, so I can just switch that on when I need it. Do you know what I mean? So traveling, again, we were talking about this before we got on the call, weren't we? And traveling's the same. So if you've got to get up early in the morning, that's when you grab something at the airport, and it'll probably, you know, it's not necessarily going to be what you'd usually have, or maybe it is, maybe it's highly calorific, maybe you just do something to get food. And people do this on trains as well. They go on a 3-hour train journey and they're worried that, you know, you see people with like stacks of food, and it's like, you're on the train for 3 hours. It's, you know, you can go for 3 hours without eating. Because the actual food that you'd usually pick up for that it'll be junk food, or like a packeted sandwich or something like that, which have got more calories than you realize and what have you. So being able to, or even being on a long haul flight as well, you know, you can go the whole way and then grab something when you get the other end or whatever. So these little things, this is level 3 thinking. It's I can apply this. I've learned this, and I've delved slightly into it, or I've gone to level 2 on all of this stuff before. So therefore I can just apply it as it shows up in my life. And that is, it's hugely, what's the word? Not power. I'm not looking for powerful. Not beneficial either, but it's liberating. It's quite liberating because you feel like you're like, I've got control of this, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And, that's for me, that then once you know that, once you've got that in your lifestyle, you've got that in your mindset, you can apply it to pretty much anything.
And I think that, I've just in the process of having this conversation today, I've kind of realized, I think that most of coaching, I suppose, or helping people through, a journey or an adventure, whatever phrase we use, or is actually kind of helping people move where appropriate from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, and the people that I think about now who have been training with me and at Unique Results for a decade plus, some of them up to 15 years, they're level 3, they are training, exercise, movement, living well is part of their identity and their character, and it's who they are and it's what they do. And I think that the hardest part, or not the hardest part, but that's when people really have it, when they're at that level. And some people constantly just dip their toes in the water at level 1 and try something for a couple of weeks, try something for a couple of weeks, try something for a couple of weeks, and you mentioned, you posted something about the book Mastery the other day that we were talking with Dan about.
That was really interesting, that, because we were talking about it with him. I had the book on my shelf there, and then it showed up in my
oh, was it a memory or something?
In my memories in Facebook, it was basically that day 2 years ago I'd posted something about it, and then that day 3 years ago I'd posted something about it as well. So I was like, oh, this has been in my life for ages, and it was Dan John who
so it might be, I think it might be called the Dabbler or something like that.
Yeah,
someone who dabbles in many different things. So you might, oh, I'm going to try these cold showers. Oh, I'm going to try this intermittent fasting. I'm going to try this barefoot running. I'm going to try these kettlebells. I'm going to try, eating less processed foods. I'm going to try drinking more water. I'm going to try walking more. I'm going to try Zumba. I'm going to try Pilates, whatever. And you just try everything, and you never actually go down to that sort of next level of any of it, and none of it sticks. And ultimately, you don't get anywhere because you just constantly.
So this is when you have one of those phone conversations, or someone comes into your gym for a consultation or whatever, and you go through the history, and they're like, "Oh, I've tried everything." It's like, yeah, you've tried everything, but you haven't done everything.
Haven't committed. Yeah, you've tried everything, but you've committed to nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when people say this as well, I say then they can't work out why. They know why. They just won't have, because you put that mental block on it, and you won't tell yourself. You won't say to yourself, "Look, man, you just need to do more of this." I've went a bit Geordie then. Look, man, you just need to do a bit more of it. But that's it. And and people know this as well. They know it of themselves, but they just because I know, because it was me. And you're like, "Oh no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work." And it's like, it does. You just got to do it. You got to commit. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, I think, like I say, I just made those few notes last night. I was in bed when I was, tossing and turning, and it was ridiculously hot. And I thought, what are we going to talk about in the podcast tomorrow? And I just started thinking. I'm glad I just opened my notes and made the note. And I really think that having this conversation, it's amazing, because just having this chat with you for 45 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever it's been, has helped me kind of clarify some stuff. Like I say, in terms of, that is really our job, is to move people through those levels. And this podcast is almost like it's a level one. It's a level one. It's an introduction. It's like an introductory kind of portal or product that people can start to listen to get ideas, and to be introduced to ideas, and be introduced to people. And then if they want to take it to the next level, they might look at buying one of the books that from one of the guests that we have on, or reaching out for some coaching, or whatever, but then they look to sort of take the ball and run with it a bit. And then but it's not until they get to that level 3, which might take 6 months or a year, where they are, it's them, it's their identity, it's their character. And that's what it needs to become.
I love what you're saying there, because number one, people should listen to this podcast. but it's pointless saying that because you already are. It's one of them things. Anyway,
what's it? You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. But you're saying during this conversation, that's why I love doing this, because we have so many conversations with different people and with each other, and the conversations we have before we even start recording, and all of that is I'd say we're at level 3 on that as well, because it's like we just rock up and go what we're going to talk about, and it's not like we don't have anything to talk about. It's like, no, what we think is poignant at this moment in time, or you had this idea last night, and then we can turn that into we could talk about this for another hour, but we're not going to, so don't worry. But no, but that's the skill. And you were talking about doing this with Chet, friend of the show. You put that post out today, saying you chat to him about this stuff, and it brings, like, unless you talk about it, it doesn't. You can try and think about this stuff, but if you talk about it and journal and all this sort of stuff, it's like a brain dump. It comes out of your head, and then you end up in a place, you're like, oh, I didn't know I was going to go there. I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't know my brain was going to take me down that route. And it really frees you up and starts you to critically think about everything. And it opens up your mind to that curiosity I was talking about. I mean, honestly, that's why it's one of my values, because curiosity is just, it takes you places that you would never have thought of. And that's
great. And I think I just had a thought, actually. We need to say, well done. And this is, again, another example of people who've moved down through level 1, level 2, level 3, and taken their level of commitment and their identity now. We need to say well done to 2 former guests of the Health Oddity podcast and 1 future guest, Finbar Toulan, Ben Morris and Lauren Emery, who were at the Irish Kettlebell Championships in Kilkenny at the weekend, and all smashed it. And I know it was Lauren's first foray into competing at kettlebells, and she did fantastically well. I know Finbar smashed it, and obviously, and I think Ben also, I
don't think he set any world records this time, but he's
but I think Finn and Ben, I think both got gold. I think Lauren got silver. I think they all were competing in pentathlon, and we will be having Lauren on the show sometime in the next month. I think I've kind of been talking to her, because she's had a fantastic story of going from, zero to hero, if you like, almost, like not being someone who was, a gym person as such, and now, competing at, competitions, in kettlebell sport, which is amazing.
She's amazing. Honestly, when I've met her a couple of times by coming to your place, and she just looked like someone who trained or who was interested in it and all that. And then she's obviously, Finn started coaching and she's gone down this pentathlon route. But then I saw the picture of her on your wall, and I didn't recognize. I was like, "Is that you?" She was, because she was much bigger and just didn't look like someone who trained. Basically, a completely different person.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even know that was you. I didn't know you were like that previously. She was like, "Oh yeah, I never used to do anything."
Yeah,
it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So no, we'll get Lauren on, and we'll have a full on conversation with her. But yeah, so I just wanted to say well done to those 3 guys who did great. So what we will do, I am away for the next couple of weeks, so I think we're probably going to have a couple of podcasts with Peter and Paul, and then Peter's going to be away, and you'll probably have a couple of podcasts with me and Paul. And I don't know if Paul's going to have a holiday at some stage.
No,
no,
I doubt it. I wonder if he listened to this. I doubt it. Bless him.
He's not allowed a holiday.
He's not. No.
Yeah. So but no. So we're going to obviously, like I say, we've got guests going to be lined up for throughout the next month. Just want to say, obviously, as usual, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review, join the Facebook group if you'd like to. Stay engaged, keep engaging with us. Let us know if you'd like us to reach out to certain guests, or if you've got certain guests potential guests that you know who you'd like to put in touch with us, then please do that as well. We're now, obviously, this was episode 102. We love what we're doing. It has, like you said, this is a level 3 activity for us now. It's part of our identity. It's part of who we are. It's part of what we do, and, it's nearly 2 years. What would 2 years be? Episode 54, I suppose, would be 2 years, wouldn't it?
104.
104, 2 lots of 52. Yeah, will be 2 years. So yeah, it's firmly a part of what we do now. So we appreciate you all. We love doing this every week, and we will continue to do so. So hopefully you find some of that interesting, and we will see you next week. Say goodbye, Mr. Peter Lance.
Goodbye, Mr. Peter Lance. Ha.
Ha. Goodbye. See you next week.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.